It's often in the most unassuming places that the most unsettling stories unfold. Golders Green, a peaceful tree-lined corner of northwest London, became the setting for one such story in March 2005. Anne Mendel, an 84-year-old woman, was found in her home, the victim of a brutal attack. She had been stabbed 14 times. The community was, quite naturally, in a state of profound shock. This wasn't the kind of thing that happened here. People felt a deep sense of unease, a feeling that a fundamental line had been crossed, leaving a stain on the neighborhood's sense of safety. The investigation soon led police to a name: Kemi Adeyoola. At just 17 years old, she was an unlikely suspect, at least on the surface. She was the daughter of a millionaire. Privilege, opportunity, not desperation. This detail added complexity and intrigue to the case. Why would someone from such a seemingly fortunate position commit such a heinous act? Challenging common assumptions about what leads a young person down a path of extreme violence, the motive, as it emerged, was tragically simple and chillingly detached. When the case against Kemi Adeyoola went to trial, the details presented to the court painted a disturbing picture of a young woman fascinated by the very idea of killing. The prosecution laid out evidence beyond a simple burglary gone wrong, suggesting a deeper, premeditated darkness. The court heard she had harbored troubling thoughts and interests far from typical for a teenager. It was the culmination of something that had been growing within her. The courtroom listened intently as the prosecution built a chilling narrative at odds with her youthful appearance. Ultimately, the jury was convinced by the weight of the evidence. The facts were stark. She had entered the home of a vulnerable elderly woman and stabbed her repeatedly. In 2006, Kemi Adeyoola was found guilty of murder. The verdict brought legal closure. A young life was set on course for prison, while another had been tragically cut short. The judge handed down life in prison with a minimum of 20 years before parole. The transition from a life of privilege to the harsh reality of a maximum security prison for Kemi Adeyoola, this became her new existence. Her years behind bars were not marked by quiet reflection. Reports from within the prison painted a picture of a difficult, challenging inmate, creating a long, complicated prison record. According to prison reports, her behavior was often problematic. There were instances of deliberately stealing items from her peers, a seemingly minor infraction but revealing nonetheless. It suggested the fundamental issues that led to her crime had not been resolved. It showed a pattern of pushing against structures meant to contain and reform her. More concerning were reports of her interactions with fellow inmates. Prisoners reported being intimidated by her obsessive behavior. That crossed into psychological manipulation and control. Her record also included a history of abusing substances while in custody. All these factors, the theft, the intimidation, the substance abuse, combined to create a portrait of someone not making clear progress. The prison system was containing her, but the question remained, was it reforming her? The answer would shape the decisions to come. After nearly 2 decades behind bars, the question of Kemi Adeyoola's future came to the forefront in 2023. She had served most of her minimum term and became eligible for parole. Parole would evaluate her risk to the public and her suitability to return to society. Her first parole hearing was in March 2023, a critical, formal assessment. For Adeyoola, it was the first real chance of life outside prison. For the public, for the victim's family, many observers were surprised by the hearing's outcome. The parole board, a 3-expert panel, did not recommend immediate release. Instead, they made a highly unusual suggestion. They suggested moving her from a high-security prison to open conditions. Open prisons have much lower security. They allow more freedom and responsibility. They test readiness for release. This was uncommon for someone convicted of a notorious murder. The recommendation was advisory to the Secretary of State for Justice. Still, it signaled the board saw possible de-escalation in her security status. Despite earlier negative reports, they judged she had made enough progress. They thought she could be trusted with greater freedom and reduced supervision. It was a potential bridge from total confinement to eventual liberty. A second oral hearing in October 2023 reaffirmed the board's view. They again refused full release as not yet safe, but they reiterated the open prison recommendation. Nuanced, still a risk, but a managed risk that could be reduced in a less restrictive environment. While the parole board was considering her future, Kemi Adeyoola was also pursuing another legal avenue to shorten her time in prison. She made an application to the High Court to have her minimum 20-year tariff reduced. She argued she had made exceptional and unforeseen progress behind bars. That specific legal route allows reconsideration if rehabilitation is truly extraordinary. It was a bold claim that required substantial evidence, but the High Court judge, Mr. Justice Singh, was not convinced. After reviewing the evidence, including prison reports detailing troubling behavior, he refused to alter her minimum term. His judgment was clear and direct. In his ruling, he stated plainly, "There is clearly a lot of work still to be done." The decision closed the door on any early release, reinforcing the 20-year minimum. The judge highlighted reports that painted her as a difficult inmate. He pointed to a long history of pushing boundaries, instances of stealing from fellow prisoners, intimidating and obsessive behavior. Nearly 20 years after the crime, the case still grips the public and media. Her privileged background, her young age at the time of the offense, the chilling, calculated nature of the murder, recent parole hearings and the High Court battle brought her name back into headlines. Remorse, the possibility of redemption. The story remains chilling and compelling,